Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Missions Monday. Today we're talking about missions and the vision of God. Is missions my vision or is missions God's vision? I'm in studio with Pastor Paul Andrulonis, and I know the answer seems obvious, Pastor Paul. It seems very clear. It's obviously God's vision, but if I don't know if it is so obvious. I don't know if it's so overt. First John chapter 2, verse 17 speaks about the will of God. It says, he who finds the will of God. Another word you can put there is he who discovers the will of God will abide forever. It seems as if the call of God, the will of God, the vision for missions, the vision of God is something that's a revelation. That's not 1 Corinthians 2:14, that's spiritually discerned. So I would say, number one, you're walking in the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're walking in the Spirit, the vision of God, as far as your portion in his vision, may not be so apparent. So maybe you can walk us through, as someone who's walked through that decision-making process, maybe some discoveries and some decisions you came across along the way in how I find the vision of God in my call toward missions.
Yeah, I think in our lives as believers and in those of us who feel maybe a call to ministry or
Mhm.
a call to missions, I think the question that we always want to know is what's God, what's your will for me
Mhm.
and what it is that I should do, where should I go,
Right.
what is that going to look like, and how do I find the answer to that question, and how
Mm.
do I know that it's the right answer to
Mm.
that question. And in my testimony or in my understanding and going through this process, that is something that has been a real tension or struggle of trial and error. And in some cases, um, just sitting back and not doing things because
Mhm.
I didn't want to make a mistake.
I
I
get you.
didn't want to do something that wasn't God, the vision that God had for me. And I think it has forced me to draw closer to him,
Mhm.
but also it has forced me to think about the things that God has put in my heart, the desires he has given me personally, and to not only let him search me and not only for to let him kind of expose those opportunities or things that he's called for me to do, but to search myself and think about those things that maybe aren't as um, clear
Mhm.
necessarily, but also the things that maybe keep coming up as things that I think God wants me. And that's how I, in my experience, in this transition that I'm that I'm in the middle of, as far as um, doing sports ministry in Baltimore, like
Mhm.
this thing keeps coming up as something that God, is this what you want me to do? Is this what you want me to do? And instead of suppressing it or instead of pushing it away over and
Mhm.
over again, maybe like, oh, maybe this is God showing something, maybe God
Mm.
exposing this vision he has for me. And for a long time, I was ignoring it, or I was saying, that's not it. It's got to be something different. And that's an interesting place to be
Mhm.
and an interesting process to go through because it requires you looking inside and trusting God with those things and bringing them before the Lord and letting Him shine on those things and see if it's what He wants for you.
Because there's this thing we have, Pastor Paul, that's like our faith. And we really like participate in God's work, God's will, God's plan by faith. And we have a tendency to do things in faith and then say, okay, God bless that.
Yeah.
What that does is that creates a mindset that my faith is guiding God's will, meaning I'm doing what I think is God's will, what I think God would want to do, and I'm doing it in faith. And I'm saying, okay, God, change your plan to match my effort,
Hmm.
right? Versus rather finding out God's plan and then letting that guide my faith.
Hmm.
I think sometimes it's easy to put your faith and what you do and think in faith ahead of God's will for your life
Hmm.
because it's hard to marry your faith to what God wants. It's easier to marry your faith to what you want.
Yeah.
So it's real easy to say, okay, I'm going to do this outreach. I'm going to go to the mission because this is the will of God.
Mm.
Missions is the will of God. Yes, missions is the will of God, but how you participate in it, really God has to guide us by faith.
Hmm.
Because otherwise, we open the door in missions to just sincerity,
Hmm.
just doing things sincerely based upon what is the good work instead of what is God's perfect will.
Hmm.
So as you discover, I like that word discovery, as you're discovering the will of God for your life, I think the background noise of that will is the overall vision of God for man and for the plan of God. That's like
Hmm.
there. And sometimes, like you said, we're so scared We're so scared to touch it.
Yeah.
We're so scared. We're so scared of getting it wrong. We don't get it right. You know, we're like,
Uh-huh.
no, or the classic. I tried it. There
Yeah.
was adversity, or doors didn't open, so that we rule it out,
Yeah.
and we can quickly do that.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying about faith, it implies or requires there to have faith in something.
Yes.
So what you were saying about having faith and having God conform to my faith in our worship of God, a lot of times we want to worship God who is a lot like us.
Wow. Okay.
And we want God to kind of be made in our image and not
Hmm.
us be made in his image. And in
Hmm.
our discovery of the will of God for us, it can be the same thing. It was like,
Sure.
well, this is what I like and this is what I want to do. This must be what God wants me to do.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that that is completely not possible,
Right.
but it can blind me to the adversities or the struggles or the difficulties I experience in those being part of what God has planned for me, because maybe it's not going to be everything that I always enjoy, but maybe on the other side of that difficulty or that hurdle or whatever the case is, there is a new person of myself that is on the other side where I didn't know that I would enjoy this as
Hmm.
much as I did. And that's an example for myself in this process of raising funds and going into full-time ministry and having that be part of this process of going and talking to people and asking them to support me financially so that I can do the work that I believe that God has called me to do. That was a part that was that hurdle where it's
Hmm.
like, well, I don't know if I can do this because this thing is not who I am. I've never done it before. I don't think I'm going to be good at it.
Hmm.
All these different things that come up. And now it's like, well, now that I've gotten to the other side of that hurdle, I was like, actually, this is a really great part of this process that I didn't know I would enjoy as much.
Huh.
And us getting to that point, that fork in the road or that hurdle that we don't want to go over and shying away from it can actually prevent us from seeing more potential in what God has and growth in ourselves to be who God designed us to be and to be the person that he has called us to be and to do the things that he's called us to do.
Hmm.
Because I could say, oh no, this must not be it because there's a roadblock, because there's something prohibiting it.
Hmm.
And I've seen that in other areas. Well, it's not happening and shifting and adjusting, which I think is part of our paying attention and being intentional about
Hmm.
our ministry and our mission and the things that we do, not just doing it because we've always done it, or not just getting to that it works, so I'll
Hmm.
just continue doing it and it works. But also one of the things is that in our discovery or in this maybe taking that step of faith,
Okay.
sometimes we can remove ourselves from the work. Now, I'm saying that because in my case, there's a fundraising process
Hmm.
that goes into play, and in this decision that I'm like, okay, Lord, if this is going to happen, if you're going to call me into ministry, you're going to have to make it possible
Hmm.
financially with the provision, and I trust you, Lord, that you will provide, right? And in that statement and in that mindset, I say, God, you've got to do this, and
Hmm.
I sit over here and I can wait.
That's the playbook. Like, okay, it's all God. It's the let go and let God philosophy, right?
Yeah,
For
yeah.
missions, like, okay, God, if you want me there, but I don't believe God is grabbing corpses. I don't think it's like, okay, I'm led of the Spirit. Being led of the Spirit, Ephesians 5:18, is not you laying down as a corpse and the Spirit miraculously picks you up in Romans 8:11. He just moves you across the
Yeah,
parking
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
There's a participation in it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was I had noticed that even as I've been doing the things that God's called me to do, as I've been meeting with people and thinking about the vision for the ministry and who are the people that I need to talk to, I realized this separation between, okay, God, if you're going to make it happen, faithful is he who has called you, who also will do it.
Right,
Misapplying that verse in
yeah,
this case where I'm saying, okay, God, bring the money in, come on, make it happen.
right.
And initially I was like, okay, Lord, just you're going to do this. And over time, he has actually brought me back or brought me closer to him
Hmm.
in this process, to not only that, yes, he will inevitably do it. He is going to turn the hearts of people to support me and to provide for this to make it happen. But he doesn't want me sitting over here just waiting for that to happen. He wants me to be a part of that so that I can know not only the people that are involved in that, but to know him in a more intimate way.
Hmm.
And I've recognizing that separation and seeing the closeness and the intimacy that I have with the Lord now, with him drawing me closer to him, like, this is how it's going to work, instead of sitting over there and being like, come on, God, when's
Do,
it going to happen?
do
Come
your
on,
part. Yeah.
what, you know, I want to do this.
Right.
You know, this is what you've called me to. Well, why won't you make it happen? And it's been an interesting growth personally
Mm-hmm.
in my spiritual life,
How so?
in that I have grown in my intimacy with the Lord because I am recognizing and seeing him in the different aspects of this process,
Okay.
as opposed to me just reaping the benefit of it.
Nice.
Because in this separation, I'm sitting over here and, God, you're going to do it. And let me know when the bank account is full and I can go and do my ministry, as opposed to God is going to do it. And I am there alongside him, having the conversations with different people and seeing him do things that are outside of my frame of reference in order to make it happen. So I haven't met my goal, but I have seen multiple times where I thought it was going to go a certain way in a conversation, and God has given a different outcome or given a completely different solution to what I thought was going to happen. An example is I was meeting with a guy. We go to a prayer circle in Dundalk, and I was meeting with him, and we met at the prayer circle. And we're like, let's go get coffee afterwards. We had a place where we were going to go, and some of the other guys from the prayer circle were going out for after the prayer meeting as well. They're like, you guys want to join us? And in my heart, I was going to talk to him about supporting me in the ministry, get to know him, and talk about the things that God's put on my heart. So in my heart, I was like, I don't want to go with all these other people.
Of course.
I want to sit
Yeah.
and have this conversation with
Right.
him and add to the support that I need in order for me to do ministry. And I was like, no, I said, yeah, let's go. We'll go with everybody else. So we went, and on the way driving there, I was like, why did I do that? We should have just. And it's funny because we get there, we have our conversation. I talk with him, and tell him about the ministry that I'm going to be a part of, and all these different things. And we're having a great conversation. And while we're talking, someone at another table turns around and he says, I hear you guys talking about Jesus. That's awesome. Random guy, never met. He just turned around and said that. I was like, he is awesome. Jesus is awesome. Who are you? And I get introduced to this guy who's a pastor in the Dundalk area.
Wow.
And we have a conversation. He's part of a prayer meeting of pastors in the Dundalk area.
Mm-hmm.
He invites me to the prayer meeting with the pastors. So I was thinking, I'm going to meet this guy. Mm-hmm. He's going to be compelled by the Spirit to support my ministry, hopefully cover all the rest of the ministry needs that I have. Right. But God was like, no, that's your plan, or your vision for how this is supposed to go. But my vision is something different.
Wow.
So like, he gives us a vision, but then he is kind of helping us see his vision in the different things. Because the vision is for me to minister and to do this thing, but these little steps that are along the way. And there's other examples of that where you see, if you're paying attention to, you see the fingerprints, like God's movement in these different areas.
So I'm intentional, but I've got to be observational. And I think that goes back to the idea of discernment. This discovery is fueled by spiritual discernment. Let me throw a different word at you. When we think about the vision, the will of God, desire, which brings to the verse, you obeying God, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Mm-hmm. How does that verse fit into this idea about the vision for missions?
I think God giving us the desires of our heart are things that God has put inside of us.
Okay.
And I think in some ways we can say this is what my heart desires from a natural perspective or inclination. I say, this is what I want. God, give me the desires of my heart. I want a big house. I want this car. I want this thing or whatever. And we say, God, give me the desires of my heart. And I think in order for me to recognize the desires that God has given me, I have to draw close to him. Mm-hmm. And I have to give him my heart. I have to let my heart be not rigid, but be soft. Mm. In Ezekiel 36:26, we use it a lot in biblical psychology. God gives us a new heart and a new spirit. It says in that same verse that God takes a heart of stone and he gives us a heart of flesh. Mm-hmm. And I think what we can get stuck in is expecting God to give us this, give us the desires of my heart, and the desires of my heart is this thing. Nothing else is what I want from you, God.
Wow.
And I, in my testimony, have had that type of heart or a mindset where this is what I want to do, Lord. Why aren't you letting it happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I expressed that in the first time I was on Missions Monday. But when my heart is softened, when my heart is alive, because
Mm-hmm.
this heart is not alive,
Right.
when my heart is alive, I'm able to fully experience and receive what God has for me and the desires that He's put in my heart, so that I can see fully uh, the fullest extent of what's possible in that. And it requires relationship. It requires like a a flow. There's a flow that happens in my
Mm-hmm.
heart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm receiving from the Lord his life flowing in me, and then it's flowing out into whatever ministry that I am a part of.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have a heart of stone, where this is the desire of my heart, then that flow isn't gonna. Maybe the flow of life from Christ will deflect off of me into different places, but it's not going to actually flow through me.
Mm-hmm.
And of Him and to Him and through Him are all things. Like in my ministry, am I receiving what He has? Am I paying attention to what He has for me and the desires that He's put in my heart, and bringing those desires to the light of who Christ is,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that they are His desires and not my own desires. Because I think for me, for some time, it was like, this is prideful, this desire that I have,
Wow.
like to do this thing, to lead a ministry and teach people the Bible or whatever it is. I'm going to, Lord, you're again removing myself and saying, Lord, if you want me to do this, you have to make it happen. Um, and I think that He teaches us these different things. And I lost my train of thought for a second there, because He wants to search our hearts,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can be close to Him and intimate with Him, and then see the fruit of that thing and be a part of it, and not just be receiving the benefit or reaping the reward of it. Because He wants us to be close to Him, and He wants to be part of it, and He wants us to be a part
Mm-hmm.
of it with Him.
It's like sometimes we see the call of God and the vision of God for missions as me going to people, not me going to God.
Yeah.
And I can get so caught up in going after people that I forget to go to God.
Mm-hmm.
Or I create these plans, these strategies, these tactics to go get people,
Mm-hmm.
but I won't come to God. And what that tends to do is bankrupt my ministry, because I have no capacity for the very people that I'm going to go get. I've got to go to Him to get my capacity for what He has called me to do to other people. I guess the question is, how do you navigate the layers of your life? It's so easy for you to look at your life and say, this is the vision for missions, and this is the vision for God, or this is the vision for missions, and this is the rest of my practical life. That overlap, because most of us, we think formal missions.
Mm-hmm.
We think, okay, I'm doing this thing, and that's my life, and everything else is there. But there's so many layers to the call of God and how that works in missions. Because a lot of folks see missions in a romantic view, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get on a plane, get on a boat, go somewhere halfway across the world. That's missions, and that is.
Yeah.
But that cannot be my own. Like the outermost parts cannot be my mindset when it comes to missions.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if I'm not involved in a local missions, if it's not in my home church, how is it not? How is it in my heart to go to foreign missions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the main things that was a hurdle, I think, in my going into ministry
Mm-hmm.
and pursuing domestic or local missions or ministry, is that concept in my mind of, this is what it means to be a missionary. This is what it means to go, and who am I to do that here? And I think that, and God putting the desires of your heart, connecting it with that, like my desire may be to reach the lost in Asia or Africa or wherever it is, but I felt for a long time God's desire in my heart to reach where I'm from.
Okay.
And the tension between those, the picture in my mind and the desire of my heart, was this difficult thing for me to wrestle with, where, okay, am I a missionary, or or is it something different? And I think we follow the things that we are taught, or the places we are a part of, and I
Sure.
think that was likely a part of it. Seeing different pastors come here to Baltimore and go back out to the mission field, I was kind of like, well, I'm just here in Baltimore, like diminishing that for whatever reason in my
Hmm.
own heart, and seeing like, okay, God, you've given me a desire for this, but what would that look like, and not really knowing how that would work out. And then the layers of things I've uh, trying to navigate those different things. And I've had these different pictures as I've been meeting with different people and talking about the different things that God's put on my heart, or the ministry, the vision that He's given me. I've been able to kind of communicate different things, and God's given some different illustrations um, that have really helped paint the picture, help me understand some of these things, and in the difficult times and in the great times
Okay.
of this process. And one of them is like the layers of things. And we we had a rap a little while ago about artistic things,
Oh yeah.
and one of the things is layers, like a layers of a painting, or layers of a picture. You know,
Hmm.
you add the different layers to them. And there's another in music, it's similar,
Hmm.
where you have all these different instruments that are, when you put them all together and they're playing, it's a beautiful sound. But I've found in some cases that there can be dissonance
Hmm.
when those layers are not lined up appropriately.
Hmm.
The timing of a song, there's a tempo,
Hmm.
and there's a time when everybody's supposed to start,
Hmm.
and maybe one person starts on time, or everybody starts on time except one person, and they start a half beat off. It's going to ruin.
Mm.
And I looked at my life in that way, where there's a symphony, or there's a band that is playing, and I have my family that's playing one part of that song, my ministry, my job, my extended family, my church life, all these different things, and how they're all playing for the same song. But there are times when there's some dissonance, because for whatever reason, they're out of order, or
Okay.
they're not lined up appropriately. So having the reconciliation of those different things, or having those things lined up, makes it possible for that song to sound the way it's supposed to sound. But
Hmm.
when it doesn't sound the way it's supposed to sound, we can get overwhelmed with the noise.
Wow. Okay.
And I felt that, especially even in the last couple of months, just because, okay, what am I focusing on? What
Hmm.
should I be doing with my time? Who
Sure.
should I be talking to? Where should I be going? What am I at the right place? And having all those different thoughts is like, we can compartmentalize, as men especially, we can compartmentalize these different aspects of our lives, where,
Hmm.
okay, here's the dad box.
Hmm.
I open it up, I take out things, I do the dad things, and I put it back.
Hmm.
Okay, here's the pastor box, I take that out. And each of these areas of our lives are actually, we compartmentalize into individual boxes. But the reality is, they're all happening and being played at the same time.
Mm.
They're just all lined up differently. And
Gotcha.
women handle this a lot better. My wife is an expert at all these different things, because these boxes are really just my way of coping with all the noise.
Mm.
Is to only listen to one at a time.
Okay.
Because just like when you listen to each of the instruments in a symphony, you can hear what they're playing, and it sounds great when they're by themselves. But then when you add it into all the things, if they're off tempo or out of tune or whatever, you can't hear
Hmm.
the sound, or the music. So
Mm.
I think in for my testimony, in my example, like navigating those different things and recognizing that there are different aspects that I can focus on, that are part of the bigger song that is being played
Mm.
in my life, and not looking to kind of fix each of those individual things, but to kind of see how they all correlate and combine together into my life, to make it possible for me to serve God
Mm.
in the best way. Because it's when you get into the weeds of those different things, it can be extremely overwhelming,
Yeah.
trying to
A lot of
make
Christians
sense of
just
it.
just throw their hands in the air and say, "I don't know what the will of God is," and it just you end up floating in the body. Number one,
Yeah.
or maybe you're in, you run around claiming Matthew 26, not my will, God, but your will be done.
Yes.
And we just stamp that on everything as permission, number one, to be passive. Also, also it gives us space to be reluctant. I want permission to be reluctant, like, oh God, I don't want that, but if you say so, so that gives me kind of an idea to kind of I don't have a right heart attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I don't want that, but if you say so. So then it almost becomes an adversarial mindset towards how I see God's will versus my own will.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so then I say, okay, I'm just like Jesus on the cross, not my will, but thy will be done. That's a great devotional verse, but it's very easy to use that verse as a license to not do anything or to
Mm-hmm.
do the wrong thing or to have an adversarial view of the way God's doing everything. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
like this. Yo, well, so I'm bitter, but I'm doing the will of God. I become
Mm-hmm.
like King Amaziah in 2 Chronicles 24, 25, at verse 2. I'm going to do everything right, but not with a perfect heart. Because once again, imagine doing the missions with a stony heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the right thing. I'm going to do it with faith. And this is what the church, that's what I've been taught to do.
Yeah.
But is that the vision of God?
Yeah, because I think when we have that, not my will, but your will be done, we tend to have that. We're pushing through,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a like God's will is not something I can enjoy.
Yeah.
Like
It
when
sounds
you
that.
use that as an
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
it says, okay, well, Jesus didn't want to die on the cross, but he did it anyway for us. So in my life, when I'm ministering, it means I shouldn't be able to enjoy what I mean, you can extrapolate that to say,
Yes.
well, I shouldn't be, if it's God's will, I shouldn't enjoy it.
And they sell that. I mean, that gets so big. Like, whatever you don't like is probably the will of God. Whatever you do like is not the will of God. And they forget, okay, there's no joy in my call. But what did Jesus say in Hebrews 12? For the joy set before him, he endured it. He actually had joy there. But we sometimes oversell the suffering of the cross to say that Christ suffered with a bad attitude.
Mm-hmm.
We present Jesus Christ perfect with a miserable in the garden, like, I hate this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be separated from my Father. I don't want to take these sins that are not mine. You get this idea, like you said, I can import that into my life and be in the mission with a nasty attitude, with a poor attitude, and think, well, that's acceptable. Like, if I don't enjoy this, like going to the gym, well, you're not supposed to like it. That's why none of us are happy here. We're all suffering together.
Mm-hmm.
And it can shipwreck your faith.
Mm.
And they can even make you hate the call of God or want to walk away from missions, or you have the wrong attitude. It's so crucial, your approach to the vision of God for missions for your life. And it cannot just be like, I got to be careful that it's not like hate.
Yeah.
I can hate the call of God. I can hate the vision of God. I can hate the mission because it's not what I want. It's like God says, I'm not going to give you my desire, your desire. I'm going to give you my desire, and you will not like it.
Mm-hmm.
You make God into a sergeant. Now, you're not going to like it, but this is the will of God. Okay, all
Mm-hmm.
right, God. Your will, but not my will. But I don't have to like it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like our view of God and his vision for us.
Mm.
Like if he is a God who loves us and who is good, like maybe he will call us to do things that are difficult. Maybe he will call us to do things that we don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But we can have the thing that I do that I don't enjoy be the way that we get to God, as opposed to having God be the reason why we do the thing that we don't enjoy.
Let's walk through this slowly. Okay.
Sure. So like if I feel like my relationship with God needs to be the starting point
Okay.
of my ministry, of my life, really is knowing him, drawing closer to him. But sometimes we can use what I do for God as a means to get to God,
Mm-hmm.
or to know God.
That's religion.
Which is religion, but
Right.
we can use it in our, whether we realize it or not, is like, well, this thing that I'm doing, even though I don't like it, is me being crucified with Christ,
Mm-hmm.
and having that be the means by which I learn of who God is by pushing through. And I'm not saying everything that we shouldn't have any struggle. I've already talked about pushing through
Sure.
the hurdles to get to the other side because God is growing. But if this thing is my way of relating to God,
Mm-hmm.
and not a byproduct of my relationship with God, then I'm going to be frustrated and discontented and not really learning and knowing who God is because I'm so focused on the thing I'm supposed to be doing for him. And I can miss the joys that
Yes.
come with that because I'm it's in the improper place.
Yeah, I like that the way you said it. Like, if what I do is how I get to God, I'm not going to find joy. But if I get to God, then what I do, I'll find joy.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that many of us, we once again, we want to go to the mission field, but we don't want to go to God. Or we go to God because we want to go to the mission field.
Mm-hmm.
Or we go to God to validate we should go to the mission field. And God says, "Come to me, and then let me decide how you serve."
Mm-hmm.
Every area of your life is a mission, and you're on a mission with me by faith. So let me lead you in that. Like, it's interesting that if I'm not careful, the mission and the ministry is bigger than my relationship with God.
Oh, 100%. And I think you can see that happening in different ministries, in different places, in different lives of different
Right.
people, which can have a negative impact on the discipleship of other people coming to ministry.
Right. You lead them the same path.
Yeah, you see the burnout that comes with doing something that you're doing for God without the relationship with God. But then also, like, you can feel isolated in that as well.
Mhm.
So if I'm doing this for God and I'm laying down my life and I'm doing it because I'm not going to bring anybody else into that because this is my way of getting to God as opposed to God pouring out in my life and experiencing the joy. And I want other people to experience the joy I have versus the struggle that I'm using as a means to get to the Lord.
Well, here's a good statement I often hear sometimes from missionaries that are seasoned. They'll say, "Well, I don't have a vision for that anymore." I said, "Well, that's kind of a cop out. It's like you have the wrong attitude or you're bitter about the mission that you're in. So your response to be have a poor attitude is, I don't have a vision for that anymore."
Hmm.
Okay, the vision of God is the vision of God. God can redirect you when He's calling in your life, but the fact that you have that attitude behind it, it's almost like an intentional adversarial where you're at or where you're coming from. Like, I don't have a vision for that anymore. So you leave bitter, you leave disgruntled. And how can you launch from one situation to another situation, the call of God, disgruntled?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like an escape.
Mm-hmm.
Like, things are not going the way I want them to go in my mission. I don't have the right heart attitude in my mission. I didn't get the desires I was looking for in my mission. People didn't work with me the way I want them to work in my mission. So I'm escaping to go look for something else that will validate this image, like you said, this image of what I think my mission should be. So let me escape and find another person, another place, and maybe there I'll get the desires of my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, I'll miss God.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we can miss God because we are also don't feel like we're measuring up to Him.
Comparison,
And
yeah.
like I don't have a vision for it anymore. That mentality or that thought is like, if I am using my ministry as a means for me to get to God, if, what if my ministry fails?
There's a question, because here's what happens: disappointment in the ministry. The first thing I question is it the ministry? Is it the vision of God? Lack of success, lack of fruit, lack of this deep pleasurable situation with God. Is it the right vision? Second question I ask, okay, or maybe failure in the ministry or failure in the mission. Who's using those terms anyway? God doesn't have that measuring stick anyway. You're measuring on what level? What would you call a failed mission? Well, no one got saved. But how about Noah? Only he couldn't get past his own family. There are thousands of people on the earth at this time. He couldn't get past his own family. But that was the will of God. And then you see other people go to other places with tremendous fruit. So I've got to be careful how I measure fruit and the vision of God. I got to be careful how I see the vision of God. My perspective is everything. Because if what I do validates who I am in Christ, if what I do validates my mission, that's a lot of pressure on what I do that God doesn't hold, that God doesn't have.
Yeah, He doesn't hold that over us. And I think we can be free when we start with getting to know the Lord, letting us draw near to Him, and understanding His goodness and His mercy and His love and all these things that make Him who He is, helps us to share that with other people and to see um, what his vision is for us. And maybe in my case, I think that God has put a desire in my heart, and what he wants me to do and what I want to do are aligning perfectly at this time in my life. But even still, there are those layers and those different things in my life that are can cause some dissonance in that. Like, God, this is what you want me to do, but there are a lot of factors that go into that
Right.
process. Family and sit, a job, resources, bills, relationships, ministry, church, all those different things, and they're all overlapping one another, all intertwined with one another. And drawing closer to the Lord helps me to um, not drown out, not to ignore all those things, because that's our tendency is
Sure.
when it gets noisy, we want to just unplug,
Shut down,
shut
escape.
down,
Yep.
turn everything off, and then but that doesn't actually resolve anything. It just kind of pushes it back a little bit until you want to deal with it.
Right.
But if I'm willing to sit in that noise and sit in that dissonance with the Lord, and that the Lord help me see, okay, in this situation, this is my heart in this situation. And maybe it's not systematic,
Right.
because we like things to be systematic, and typically God is not systematic in the way that he does things. We can say, Lord, search my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And in each of these things, that's been my verse, my Psalm 139. Like,
Mm-hmm.
search my heart and search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties, like the dissonance, the worries, all the different things. Even last night, Lord, try me and know my anxieties and see if there is any wicked way in me. And then search my heart, O Lord, and then lead me in the way of everlasting. Right? Lead me in the way of everlasting, Lord. Help me to know in my heart that this life that you have given and this vision that you have given is not mine, but it is yours. And it's not necessarily going to look the way that the outcome may not look the way that I see it right now, and it won't. Just like when I started this journey, the fundraising process back in September, whenever you have to raise funds, you're like, Lord, just make it happen. Have somebody give the full amount so I don't have to
I need
fundraise.
an angel with a check.
Exactly.
Yes.
An angel with a check that takes care of all that. And I
Yeah.
can just start doing the ministry.
Yeah. Right.
And like I said, God, you're going to do it. I'm separate from you. You're going to do it. And then over this time, as I've drawn closer to him, he's shown me himself, and I've had a personal growth in my personal faith. But then also he has shown me that I wasn't ready to do the ministry at that point. I didn't have the contacts or relationships with people. Me personally, in my heart, I wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was. I was praying for that.
Right.
I was asking God, Lord, this is what you want me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Make it happen. But over these months, it's been like person by person, moment by moment, conversation by conversation. He's been like preparing and showing me this is this person. And that, just like the example I gave before of meeting a guy at a random cafe, there's a handful of other examples of that where, like, how does this even happen? Like, I don't even know, like, meeting people and getting introduced to people, and then he's just like, it's God patting me on the back, like, okay, yeah, you don't understand.
Wow.
It's like, but I'm with you, and I'm showing you, and just stay with me. And then I don't know if I shared this at the last time I was on, but like, take off your shoes is what he said to Joshua before he went to go to Jericho.
Okay.
Ready to go with the army, with the people. They're going and meets the Lord, and the Lord says, take off your shoes. So that's like the first step. Like, Lord, I'm going to take off my shoes, sit at your feet, and let you pour into me. Let your desires be my desires. Let your vision be my vision, and trust you in these different things that I'm going to do, because I believe you're leading me in the way of everlasting.
I like this one, Psalm 139, intimacy reset. I think sometimes we want direction. We really want instruction. We want provision. We want power. We want capacity. We want a lot from God, and a lot of it's organic and intangible. But there's always this intimacy reset. It's kind of like in John 21, Jesus with Peter, there was an intimacy reset. Like, okay, let's get back to you and me. I think sometimes we're pursuing the vision for missions, and we forget about God's mission to me. And I
Mm.
have to feed that. I have to
Mm.
stoke that. I have to stir that up.
Mm.
And then on the other side of that, I can get direction. I can get wisdom. But I may not necessarily get what I want, but it's okay. I lose my wants really in the intimacy of God.
Mhm.
And then I may discover that some of the things I wanted were actually in his plan to begin with,
Mhm.
but I lose my need to get what I want in intimacy with God.
Mm.
I tend to find my want is him. He resets it to him. Then he has permission to do anything and give me anything.
Mm.
And sometimes it blesses me that what he has me doing or what he's leading me into, I've always wanted.
Mm.
And then there's sometimes it's completely different, but the two are the same because it's still God.
Mm.
But I like that one Psalm 139, intimacy reset. Okay,
Mhm.
God, like help me. All right, God, search me because I'm sincere before God when I pursue his will in 1 John 2:17, but I may not be spiritual in my pursuit.
Mm.
I could be preferential, I could be self-oriented, I could be good oriented, I could be moral, I could be I could be denominational, I could be cultural, I could be a lot of things, but the only thing that gives me God's will in God's way is spiritual. And I
Mm.
only get that. I only get that in intimacy.
Mm.
And the one thing that's ringing true to me this entire program is you growing in intimacy with God has opened doors everywhere.
Yeah.
One of the least of which is his will. But more importantly, he's unpacking that will according to his will, in his plan,
Mm.
in his time. But you're along for the ride in intimacy, so your expectation changes from results to revelation.
Mhm.
I don't need the results of what's going to happen next, but I have a personal revelation of you. Christ is all and in all, so it becomes you.
Mm.
And if it's Christ like that, then I can wait on God and not be passive. But I'm not, and I want to go back to that. I'm participating in what God is doing, not to make it happen, but to be with him.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people see participation like, okay, God, you do your part, and I'm going to do my part, and together we're going to save the world. No, there's no Marvel heroes at the cross. No,
Mhm.
no, it's not going to be that. But rather, okay, God, I'm with you. This is what you're doing. I'm in it to be with you. So the results are yours. How it goes is yours. I'm with you, and I'm actively participating with you.
Mm.
But I don't ever want to think that my participation produces results, because fruit is the work of God.
Yeah.
If I see fruit as the work of God, I don't have to try to produce fruit. But if fruit is not the work of God, then I have to produce fruit. That's a lot of pressure, because when I don't have fruit, who do I blame? Blame me.
Mhm.
I blame the mission,
Mm.
and ultimately, indirectly, God.
Mm.
So it's a great thing to think about the will of God in missions, but I want to be careful that I'm not organizationally driven to do missions because this is the right thing. I want it to be the God thing, and my participation begins with intimacy with him. And
Mm.
when I get close to him, I will find out some of the things I've always wanted. He put them in my heart. So I
Mhm.
can trust them as being of him. And then there's some things in the will of God that I may not like, but I don't have to be adversarial about it. I don't have to have a poor attitude about it, because the joy is in him. The joy is not in what I do. And if I find the joy in him, then there'll be joy in anything that I do.
Mhm.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge to think this way, because this is how God thinks towards us.
Mhm.
And we don't naturally think this way. It's counterintuitive for how we pursue missions. Something good needs to happen. Let me go do it.
Yeah.
Right. And then God help me do it.
Yeah.
Then I get upset when God doesn't help me do it. I say, what's going on here? I'm doing what you want.
Mhm.
Right. It's a great reset. I love that intimacy reset. So
Yeah.
good thoughts today about the will of God in missions.
Mm.
This is kind of the cerebral side of missions, the thinking side of missions. This is more like the me and God time intimacy, where I'm thinking with God through the situation, through my life, through the calling, through the various circumstances. Okay, God, help me think here.
Mhm. Mhm.
Any last words? Any last thoughts?
One thing, when you were talking about wants,
Mm.
in any relationship, your wants can become the wants of the person that you love, right? In
Mhm.
my relationship with my wife,
Mhm.
there are things that I don't like that I didn't like before we got married, but because they are things that she likes or things that she wants, they become the things that I want. And I
Mhm.
think that's true in our relationship with the Lord as well.
Beautiful.
As I draw closer to Him, His wants become my wants, not because uh, I have to want those things or
Mhm.
have to meet a criteria, but because I love Him and I want the same things that He wants. And the last thing is that I thought in the ministry that God was calling to me to in Eastern Baltimore County, Dundalk, Essex, all these places, I thought that they needed me, but really this was me needing God.
Hmm.
God is showing me like I'm not bringing anything to these places. God is bringing me to a place
Wow.
with Him, so that I can bring other people to that same place, which
Mhm.
is Him,
Beautiful.
not me.
Great thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us on Missions Monday, Pastor. This has been good. Great thoughts to think about in an intimately way about our call with God, our vision for God, the will of God concerning missions for my life and beyond. Father, thank you so much for a great program. See you next week on Missions Monday.